Story 1.
About 10 years ago, or at least that's how it feels, time has always blurred for me. I grew up in a small town. Our house was modest, but we always felt safe. For a while, I shared a room with my brother. 2 beds, 2 drawers, a pair of wardrobes. When he left for university, I cleared out his bed and put in a small desk. So I moved into the small guest room upstairs. It was tiny, but the solitude felt comforting. The windows faced 2 different walls. Beneath was the garage. Every time the garage door opened, the whole floor trembled slightly, and we'd long since accepted that vibration as normal. The incident happened on a Friday night. It was about 11:30. I was reading a book. The house was quiet. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the garage door opening below, followed by that familiar vibration. I looked out the window. It was dark. Only the garage door stood open like a glowing rectangle. I couldn't tell from a distance if there was a car inside, or a person. From behind the closet, I pulled out an old rod from childhood. As I went downstairs, but as I approached the lower floor, I heard voices in the hallway, male and female, muffled, distant. I burst inside. 2 men were rummaging like scavengers. He threw me to the ground, wrested the rod from my hands, and gripped my throat. I thought I was going to die. Suddenly, the faint sound of sirens reached us. Then came a blow, and everything went dark. When I woke, my head was spinning. Police officers and paramedics were rushing around. The back door of the bedroom was wide open. Story 2. A few months after that incident, another strange event occurred. This time it was cleverly planned, almost as if someone was mocking me. One evening around 9 o'clock, my phone rang. The screen showed a local number I didn't recognize. I picked up, and a woman's voice said, "I'm calling from the emergency room. Your mother has fallen and has been taken to the hospital." She knew my mother's name, our address, even the surgery she had last year. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Without thinking, I rushed out. When I arrived at the hospital, the admissions desk said there was no record under my mother's name. "No entry," the receptionist repeated. I immediately called my mother. She was at home, calmly sipping tea, and said, "What are you talking about?" My legs trembled. Sweat ran down my face. The woman's voice still echoed in my ears. When I finally returned home, the door was locked. But inside, everything was turned upside down. The TV, my laptop, some jewelry were gone. But the most disturbing detail was something else. Our family photos had been taken out of their frames. The frames were still there, but every picture was missing. Medicine boxes, prescriptions had also been stolen. Whoever did this wasn't only after money. They wanted our memories, our identity. The police came, listened, took notes. They looked at me with guarded eyes and said, "This could be identity theft." But I felt something more. The old armchair in the corner had been pulled forward, as if someone had sat there for hours, just watching us. That night I couldn't sleep. I checked every doorknob, every window lock over and over. But whenever I closed my eyes, that voice that knew all about my mother whispered again, "I've been inside your home. I know your life, and I can learn even more." Days passed. The silence of the house no longer comforted me. At night, I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway, but when I looked, no one was there. Even the neighbors said, "On nights you weren't home, we saw lights moving in your windows." The disturbing feeling inside me kept growing. This wasn't just a burglary. It was as if someone had silently crept into our lives, tampering with our memories, with our very identity. And that was the worst part. What had been stolen wasn't our belongings. It was who we were. Story 3. It was a night, one of those hours when silence is at its deepest, when only the wooden beams of the house creak and the wind occasionally brushes against the windows. Suddenly, I was startled by a harsh noise at my door. There was a man. He was pounding on it with such fury that the wooden panels rattled, and the echo inside rivaled the beating of my heart. His scream was even more terrifying. "This is my house!" His voice didn't sound entirely unfamiliar. It carried a strange intimacy, a false sense of ownership. For a moment, my mind froze. Then the man began pressing documents against the glass. Fake rental agreements, photocopied envelopes. But what was truly horrifying were not the papers. but the photographs. In the photos, it was me. Inside this house, within these very walls. In one, I was sitting on the couch, watching television. In another, I was in the kitchen, cooking at the stove. There was even a summer scene of my family gathered around the dining table, smiling at the camera. The photos were so vivid, so real, that for a brief moment I doubted my own memory. Did I really live this? Why don't I remember? The most terrifying part was not his words, but his eyes. They didn't just show anger, they showed determination. They told me, "This place is mine by right." His tone wasn't a mere claim, it was a demand. And at that moment, I understood. This wasn't a simple burglary attempt. It was a calculated intrusion into our lives, an effort to make us feel like strangers in our own home. What followed was a nightmare lasting days. Police reports, court papers, statements from neighbors. On the surface, it looked like a legal dispute. But behind the curtain, the truth was far darker. Someone had set their sights on our identities, our past, our memories. That sense of a foreign presence clinging to every corner of the house never disappeared, no matter how many locks I installed. Even today, while living alone, I find myself glancing at the door at night. Before setting the alarm, I check the windows one by one. I slide the bolt twice, sometimes even a third time. These rituals have become part of my life. But the real problem isn't the rituals. It's the constant insecurity inside me. Because sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake up and ask myself, could that man still be out there, watching us from somewhere? And that's when the real horror begins. Because not knowing the answer is far more terrifying than imagining it. I can truly say this,